Hey team, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Lifestyle You podcast. It's your host, Lacey Iskra. And on today's episode, I am going to be giving everyone some time management slash productivity hacks because I think everyone can use it, first of all. And it's something that I have gotten much better at over the years. I feel like when I first started my online coaching company, I was the least productive, or I'm just not a very organized person in general, to be honest. And so it is something I have had to develop and kind of develop the skill of time management and productivity, because I do believe that it is a skill and I think that you can get better at it. And it just was never really one of my strong suits. So I've learned a lot of tools over the last couple of years, and I'm excited to share them with you. It's also funny because I always say to my business coaching clients that being an online coach is, or just anyone, I guess, that works from social media, it is the easiest job to feel super, super busy all day, but not be productive at all. And I think it's just because obviously it's so easy to get distracted with social media. You do have to go on there multiple times a day. And so that's what I always just say. I'm like, it's so easy to just be busy. And so I really hope that this podcast just brings you guys a little tip here and there for something that you can implement into your day-to-day life, because not only is it something that is hard within my job, but it is also one of the most common reasonings as to why people don't want to join our program or don't think that they can go on a weight loss journey or a lifestyle change journey, is because they just don't have the time. And I know that old saying of like, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. It's just kind of how you prioritize it. But obviously some of us have very different lives compared to other people. And so I don't really think that we all have the same 24 hours in the day, but I do believe that if you can prioritize certain things and understand just how to make those a part of your daily life, they will eventually become a habit, and then it will just be something that you do. And I think when people do use the time excuse, they're just not understanding or realizing how much time they are wasting in a day. And I'm not taking away from rest and relaxation at all, because that is something that is also super, super important. And that was also something that I had to learn because I never rested. And it was part of the reasoning as to why I was and felt so busy all the time, but not but not, that word is not productivity. That productive. Wow, Lacey, go Lacey. And so, yeah, I just think that there's some things that you can implement to help you prioritize certain things until you make them a habit. And to be completely honest, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but it just kind of came to me. The first and most important thing you can do to increase your productivity is starting your day off with intention. And what I really mean about that is just having a morning routine that serves you. I feel like I used to preach about a morning routine so much, and I've kind of fell off the wayside with that, but it is still so important, and it has been proven to increase focus and productivity throughout the day so that you can get more done in less time, and then you'll have more free time to do whatever it is that you want to do, whether that is start a weight loss journey or a business or whatever it is. So super important. And even if you can't have, or you don't have time for a morning routine, maybe you have kids, you have to get them up, get them to school and all of that, which majority of the people listening probably do have children. Just avoiding your phone for the first little bit of your day. Because what happens when you pick up your phone and you get that instant hit of dopamine by scrolling through social medias or looking at your emails. I was going to say oatmeal. It's Monday morning for me, so just cut me a break. I don't usually record these on Monday mornings, but I'm going to Whistler this weekend, so trying to get ahead on the content game. So if you just can avoid looking at your phone for the first even hour, because when you do and you look at and you get those dopamine hits, that literally trains your brain throughout the day to look for things to give them that dopamine hit. And that's what's going to cause so much distraction. And we all know that little cellular device that we all carry, we spend too much time on it. so much time, unnecessary time, time that our parents did not waste. And so if you can just do anything or get anything out of this podcast, it is just like, don't look at your phone first thing in the morning. It has been proven your productivity will increase throughout the week, and it's just super important, and it's super easy to do, and it's free. So put your phone down first thing in the morning, minimum 15 minutes. I personally try to go to at least an hour, but just do what you can. I know all of our lives are different. So jumping right in to how to be more productive. Simplify your surroundings. So this was something that I definitely had to learn, because I also am still not the cleanest person you will ever meet. And if there is just too much going around you, it is going to be very hard for you to stay focused. And try to just declutter your place in general, because it's even not an excuse, but like a reasoning not to work on something is if you have to clean up or you need to do this. And so if you enter your work environment and it's clean, you're going to just be and feel more productive. And whether you are working from home like me, or you work from an office, your work environment plays a critical role in how productive and how focused you can be, regardless of where you're working. So practice reducing those outside distractions in order to more easily focus on the task at hand. And a huge one for me was putting my cell phone somewhere that I could not reach it. Because then I'm just less likely to obviously pick it up, because I have to stand up, I have to go get it. And then, so that was huge. And that I really noticed the difference when my phone is just out of reach compared to where it's right in front of me, and how often I pick it up. And then another thing that really helped me save time and just be more productive is to silence my notifications on my phone and on my computer. So you can put your phone in like do not disturb mode. And then that way, when you receive a text message or an email or anything like that, it doesn't actually pop up on your screen, because then you're much more likely to just go and click it and read it. And then next thing you know, you're on Instagram on like your stepsister's brother's girlfriend's page, and you're like, how the heck did I get here? So that is a huge thing, is just to remove distractions, obviously. And then there are lots of different just like time management strategies, and they're all different. And I think it's important to understand that we are all different. And so you might try one of these time management systems or strategies, and it might not work for you, which is totally okay. Some of us are a lot more productive in the morning. Some of us are a lot more productive at night. And so these aren't meant to work for everyone, which is why there are different options. So it's just important to remember that it is a little bit of trial and error when it comes to figuring out what works for you and what makes you feel the most productive. But these will also help with just procrastinating in general, because I think most of us probably procrastinate. And I'm not even saying that procrastination is necessarily like a bad thing, because it can actually lead to you making a better decision or more happiness or whatever it may be. But when it comes to increasing productivity, you want to almost allow yourself a certain amount of time to procrastinate and then move on. So you're not just spending the whole entire workday like going down that social media rabbit hole. And I even notice myself doing this when I'm not necessarily following one of these strategies, but if I'm like scrolling on my phone, I'll like look at the time and say it's 7:46. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to give myself to 7:50. And then at 7:50, I'm going to put down my phone. I'm going to go do whatever I need to do. And that is just an example of how you can still procrastinate, but just give yourself a time where you're allowed to, and then give yourself that hard cut off on when you're going to continue. And lots of these time management systems have that included in it, like time to have a break and procrastinate, and so you just kind of have to figure out what works best for you. So I learned a lot of these from my business mentor. And the first one is I think it's called the Palmadoro technique. And what it is it's you set a timer for 25 minutes and you dive into work. Once those 25 minutes are up, you take a 5-minute break. And obviously it's better to go to the kitchen, grab a snack, or go for a little walk, or just even sit down on the couch, close your eyes, whatever it may be. However, if you want to scroll social media for those 5 minutes, that's totally okay. And then once that 5 minutes is up, you repeat the 25-minute session and 5-minute short break cycles 4 times. So you work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. Then after you do that 4 cycles, you're supposed to take a longer break of 20 to 30 minutes. And this has just been shown to really increase that productivity, because it's almost how humans were designed, were to work in like shorter spurts and then have a little break. But when we just tend to overwork, that's when we'll start procrastinating without even realizing it. That's when we'll start scrolling social media without even realizing it. And so this technique is personally the one that I use. It really helps me stay and maintain my focus. And then I know I have that 5 minutes coming up that if I want to scroll or something, I can save it for that time. So try that out. Might not work for you. I've also tried the next one. Some of these, I guess I shouldn't even say I tried the next one, because they're all kind of implemented in what I do. But the next method is to eat the frog. And all of that means is like, if you have a frog to eat, it's best to eat it first thing in the morning. So start the day off with your least favorite task or your most important task. That way it's out of the way. That way, if you get to the end of the day and you don't do anything else, at least you've still accomplished something. And it also does bring a lot of momentum to your day, because it makes everything else feel more enjoyable and super, super easy, because you got that daunting task out of the way. And then the last one, which I personally don't follow, but I wanted to talk to you guys about it. And it's called the getting things done method. And in this time management method, you write down all of your work you need to do and then break it into smaller chunks if necessary. And that was a total lie. I definitely do this. That was my next note that I was going to write about getting to-do lists. So I call this the getting to-do lists. And this way, instead of remembering the work in your head and attempting to recall and prioritize your task, you can see all of your upcoming work in just one place, whether that's on a note section on your computer or on a notepad. I personally just like something about pen and paper, so I always keep my get to-do list right in front of me. And then I also complete that the day before. So that's kind of like my log out for the day, is when I'm ready to move on and close my work day for the day, I write down my get to-do list for tomorrow. And this also helps because we're not always going to get everything done on our get to-do list, but it helps me relax throughout the night, knowing that I know what to prioritize first thing tomorrow, and I know I'm going to get it done then. So this really, really helps. And you will see an improvement in your productivity. So moving on from time management strategies is kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, but reducing busy work in general. And busy work is it's a key culprit of work about work. And tasks like searching for documents or trying to schedule a meeting, or like even just posting on social media, like things like that, when you're not clarity on who's doing what by when, then there's a lot of time drained into unproductive activities. So this will help if you kind of have that get to-do list, because you're not going to spend time wondering what you should do next and then procrastinating and moving on. You'll have a very clear outline of what you're going to do hour by hour. And this will really, really help. So just keep that in mind, that you can be busy and not productive at all. And something that I wanted to mention too is just making sure that you are scheduling the things that are most important to you. And this is something that I always tell my clients is, if you have a plan of working out Monday, Thursday, and Friday, then you need to schedule that in to your day as if it was a dentist appointment. And whether your approach to your day is maybe you time block on Google Calendar, or maybe you write your to-do list, or maybe you have a planner that you like to follow, Like that should be an appointment with yourself that you do not want to miss, and you shouldn't miss it. So just keep that in mind. Like scheduling the things that you say you're going to do is going to automatically increase your accountability and your ability to complete that task. So don't be afraid. I know it can kind of be hard because it feels like it's something that we should only do if we have the time, or we find the time, or if the perfect circumstance comes, especially when comes down to taking care of ourselves, especially with all the women that we work with, because most of them are moms and most of them aren't used to putting themselves first. So it can feel selfish, but I'm not going to have the taking care of yourself isn't selfish talk right now, but you know what I mean. So make sure you're scheduling those things in that you want to change, even if it is as little as making your bed. Like I remember when I first started doing my morning routine, every day for 2.5 years, I wrote down on my get to do list, wake up, make my bed, journal, read, meditate, go for a walk every single day. And I did it every single day. And there was like a little bit of satisfaction from getting to check that off every single day, knowing what I was going to do it. But I held myself accountable and I wrote it down, even though it was a habit at that point. I was already doing it. I probably didn't need to write it down, but it kept me consistent until I felt like, okay, now I don't need to write that down anymore. And then I stopped and I was able to continue to do it. But it's just something to keep in mind that it is important to write those things down, whatever is important, whatever you are trying to change. So keep that in mind. The next thing I want to talk about is capitalizing on peak productivity hours. This was something I learned a lot about in a book called Deep Work. It's really good if you are an entrepreneur or you just work from home. I highly suggest that you read it. But everyone has different productivity hours. Like I said in the beginning, some of us are morning people, some of us are night people. And for me, I spend a lot of time on calls, talking with prospective clients or just talking to my business clients or whatever it may be. And I realized that when I did those first thing in the morning, throughout the rest of the day, I felt very drained. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't get any of the important behind the scene work done. And it ended up being a fault of mine in terms of running a company. And so what I do now is I don't allow anything to happen in the first 3 to 4 hours of my day in terms of me like talking to another person on a meeting. So the first 3 to 4 hours of my day, I call them deep work. I schedule it in, I time block it in, and that's where I focus on things that are going to move myself forward, my company forward, or our clients forward. But I don't do any interaction with people, and I don't even check my emails, to be honest. I check everything at 11 o'clock. And like my text messages, all of that. So find when your productivity hours are. Some of us, like me, like to do it first thing in the morning. Some of you might feel more productive after lunch, but play around with it. And again, it's a little bit of trial and error. You have to figure it out, but you'll start to realize like, wow, I'm much more productive at these times. I can stay a lot more focused, and it seems to be working for you. So keep that in mind. And then the last thing there's a couple more. I won't say my last thing. Another thing I want to talk about, which I think we all kind of know, but the reminder is there. I actually had a really good chat with my therapist on this the other week, but it's multitasking. So try to avoid multitasking. I know we think we're good at it. I know women think they're good at it, or at least we're better than men are, but to be completely honest, no human is good at multitasking. And instead of focusing on one task and doing it well and quickly, focusing on 2 tasks, your brain slows down. You're going to complete it in a lot more time, and it's not going to be as good as if you were to just focus on that. So to avoid multitasking and increase your productivity, focus on tackling one task at a time. Like make sure you have enough of that deep work time in your productivity hours to really dive into those tasks so you can achieve that flow state. It's super important. And when you're fully immersed in your work, you're in that flow state. You're not really thinking about anything. The time isn't an issue. And that's where you get that feeling of just feeling more involved and energized and enjoyable working experience, which is what the goal is. So not only does flow state help you get work done faster, it also just tends to increase your creativity and engagement in your work. So obviously I'm just like, oh, stop multitasking and you're all going to do it, right? No. So here is some tips on how you can reduce multitasking and increase that flow state. And it's kind of what I've already mentioned, to be honest. So eliminate distractions, whether that's turning off the notifications, whether that's making sure that you have a very clean work environment, anything like that. Try to eliminate as many distractions as possible. The next thing is making sure you have a game plan of what you're going to be focusing on, and you can kind of go down in it in order of importance. So eating the frog first, and then do whatever you need to prioritize, and really diving in to your work. And make sure that you have, like, I always make sure I have a cup of water beside me. I always make sure that I eat my meal before I come, so I'm not distracted of like, oh, I need to get up and get myself a drink of water, or oh, I need to get up and get myself a snack. Like, I've taken care of those things. Now I'm here to do this thing and to focus on it. And there is something that I don't really do as much as I used to, but I went through a big phase where I would listen to like almost calming music or like focus music. You can Google it or search it up on Spotify or Apple Music. And it just increases your productivity. I don't know. I should get back into that, which I am going to now that I've said it, but it does really help as well. So you can do that as well, but multitasking is hard and on you. And it's definitely something, I'm not talking about this from a point of I never multitask anymore. It's probably my number one, I don't want to say fault because I don't think that's the word, but I multitask. And I used to be like, oh, I have ADHD, which I don't actually think that I do. I just have a hard time focusing, and it comes across in everything that I do in my life. And if you know me, you've probably made fun of me because I'll like go in the kitchen and I won't close the cupboards or I won't put a lid on. And it's because I'm always trying to do 3 things at once. And I'm always trying to rush through everything, but it really does take a lot of practice to be able to come down and be present in the moment and just focus on that one task at hand. And the more self-aware that you are, the easier this is going to be, because I literally catch myself and I'm like, slow down, Lacey, chill out. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to be much more productive if you just slow down, because for me, I really like efficiency, but that also comes to a fault for me because I end up trying to be so efficient that I become less efficient. And to just give an example of this, I remember I seen this, it was a funny meme, and it was of a picture of someone putting on their pants over their shoe, and then their pants get stuck on their shoe, and then they end up having to take their pants and their shoe off and then restart. And it's like, and that's literally me summed up. Like, I would do something like that, try to save myself 3 seconds for not taking off my shoe, try to put my pants on over my shoe, and then end up just having to take back 2 off and end up wasting like 2 minutes. Like, that's just my life to a T. So working on it, but self-awareness is obviously important. So constantly reminding myself to slow down, focus on one thing. I have little reminders around the house telling me to do that, because it's not something that just comes second nature. So definitely like not talking about this from a point of I'm really good at this, you guys should do it too. I'm definitely working on this. And then that is just about it. There was one more thing I have written down, and that is just develop the ability to say no. And that is also something that I am working on. It is much easier said than done, but being the yes man, just saying yes to everything your boss asks you to do, everything your kids ask you to do, everything your partner asks you to do, and everything your friends ask you to do, is going to leave little to no room for you. And there is so much empowerment that comes with being able to create those strong boundaries with yourself, where you told yourself you're going to do something, you scheduled it in, you removed distractions, you said no to the people who asked you to do something for them, and you got it done. And that is how you're going to build self-confidence. It's how you're going to build self-efficacy. And it is super, super important. Yes, it can be hard, especially if you have a past of people pleasing. Can become very uncomfortable for you to just say no. And it's something I've worked really hard on over the last year, and I'm still working on it. It's funny because I always say to my friends now that I will say no and I can set that boundary, but I don't really have like a comfortable or a confident way of doing it. And so I often just like almost word vomit it out. Like they'll be like, oh, do you think you can do this? And I'll be like, no. I'll like yell at them almost. And then they're like, whoa. And I'm like, sorry, like I just know if I start to argue with myself or like, oh, well, I could do it, or like, oh, let me check, then I'll just end up falling back into my old habit of just saying yes to everything. So I just have to almost get it out there. So I'm still working on it, but I've definitely got a lot better at saying no in general. It's just how I say it isn't always the best way, but you really need to learn this, and it's a skill, but it also comes from just having that self-love for yourself, because a lot of the times when we don't feel worthy or we don't love ourselves, then that's when it's easy to say yes to everything and not prioritize ourselves or what's important to us. So it's good to just work on that relationship with yourself, and you can just start small with saying no. Like maybe I can't even think of an example off the top of my head right now, but you don't have to start by like saying no to like some huge events or whatever it is. Like just start small and go from there, and continue to work on it, and just be aware, but have those non-negotiables with yourself of things you're going to want to do. And then if something is going to interfere with that, if it is your decision to say no or not, get used to saying no, because you will in turn begin to love yourself more, and you'll be able to show up in a better capacity for those people, and they'll start respecting you and understanding why you say no. And trust me, I know it's hard, but it is necessary if you want to have a productive life and not feel like you're always in a rush, always trying to get from one thing to another, and then end up living a life that you don't actually like. So remind yourself that it is okay to say no. We all have a lot of things on our plate, and we're trying to balance it all. And sometimes it's just not in alignment with us or our goals to say yes to certain things. And so I think I'm going to wrap it up there. So hopefully that was helpful. I think that was a little bit more focused on like your work environment and stuff than I actually planned it out to be. But I think it's helpful, and it's been quite the journey of being my own boss over the last 4 years, of just learning different things that work for me, that help me get things done, environments, people, surroundings, and stuff like that. And I'm still learning. I still have lots of room for improvement, but it's just been a journey. So I hope you took something out of this podcast. And if you have any questions or you need any support on anything, as always, you know where to find me. If you're new to the podcast and you haven't rated it yet, I would love and appreciate it if you could just tap the little rating button and help me out there. It really does make a big difference. But I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week.